Okay, this project now, I'm going to demonstrate how I have made these free-floating rings on a key ring out of different combinations of woods. The woods are half a dozen different kinds of native woods like birch, black walnut, maple, cherry, and oak. Again, as in the other projects, we start with a square piece of wood, we'll round it, and then we'll start to form the project. Okay, here we go. Again, we're using the gouge because of the size of the piece. Using the gouge. Only at this time we're going to taper it a little bit because I want the rings tapered from the bottom towards the top. So we'll taper the turning to this point here, like that. I like to take the skew and clean it up back towards, just to gain more wood so I don't waste it. And I'll finish the tapering and clean it up like so. I like to stop at this point and drill the hole because it's easier if I do it now than later. So I'll take my 16th bit, the pliers, and I'll drill the hole in the end. This is what will accept the screw eye to hold the split ring on the end. Okay. Now to cut the rings, I use a 60 sorry parting tool, thin one, and I'll cut down to the stem, which is the centerpiece of wood. You have to be careful that you go in at a straight angle and you don't go too far. You have to leave enough for the stem of the key ring. So the number of rings that you put on obviously is going to depend on how wide they are. It's going to depend on how long your piece is. I've made some with 20-some rings on them, and the length of this can vary depending on how long a piece of wood you have, obviously. Now I like to take a pointed gouge that I've modified to suit my needs, and I like to use that just to cut the edges off the ring before they're free. Just speeds up the process is all. Begin to form the bottom. Now I'll take 80 grit sandpaper, sand off the rough edges, because once the rings are free, they're virtually impossible to deal with as far as finishing up again. So I like to get the edges off, round them out, makes them look nicer, makes them more receptive to the finishes when they're applied. Then I'll take 120 sandpaper just to smooth them out a little bit more. And then comes the mysterious part. Some time ago I devised a tool which cuts on all three sides, the point and on both sides and from either direction. In order for this job, this is obviously too big, so I've just shrunk it down to where the point is much smaller, much shorter, but still the concept is there of a three-sided scraper. It's important in cutting the rings loose that the point of the cutter is kept in line with the shaft of the key ring, so as not to cut through it and lose it. And conversely, you come out too far, the rings are apt to split off. So it has to stay relatively in line. So we have to kind of, again, we have to move, realizing the point in your mind. So I'm moving my hands to try to keep that point in line with the shaft of the key ring. You put on here is totally a matter of choice. Also, I can add that if you have a bigger piece here and thicker, you could go down part way, cut off a layer of rings, and then when you get to this point and get them free and cleaned up, then you could go back and do it again and put a second row under and so on, depending on the size of the wood. Now, having done that, we have to shape the bottom in, being careful to hide the glue joint that everybody looks for to see, well, how did you get those rings on there? Well, now you know the secret, they aren't glued. And with the varying woods, you can see this one has a black walnut stem where it could be cherry or any of the other woods. Now we taper this in as well so that to confuse anybody looking at it and to not thinking that the ends were glued on. And again, now we just take sandpaper and clean it up. Again, with a parting tool, or with a skew, small skew, we cut it loose from the blade. And then we have our key ring. There's another smaller project which is really designed for the mini lathe. However, these projects can all be done on the big lathe. I've made little dinky carrots on the big lathe, so this just happens to be a project designated. The idea here is to make a little bud vase for a flower. And that's what we'll set up to do, so we'll go ahead and do one. Again, as before, we take round get the square to round so we have our base to work with. Making a hole for the flower. Regular bit, again with the pliers. this bit to measure roughly the distance, the depth of the hole, so that when I'm done, I don't have a hole in the bottom. Just to mark it with a cutoff tool. Here's where I have one of my innovations. I have a bayonet without the rifle. I've reground the tip to make a rather pointed gouge to show that they don't have to be from Sorby. Now just shape the vase this way. Again with the sandpaper, we'll finish, give it a little finish. Little hot wax finish to bring out the colors of the wood and seal it. Polish with a paper towel. And then use the light colored hot wax to add a little luster to it. And we take the parting tool. The flower, well, we have a flower vase with a little rose in it. Which is designed to keep people ever mindful and have a kind thought as they begin the day. Now, finally, in review, having shown you some of the projects that you can devise and do on the lathe, we'll review the basic tools. These are the tools that will come with a set of turning tools in our standard. They include the gouges. This is a small gouge here. There's a larger gouge. There are all sorts of variations available, bigger, smaller. Next is the parting tool for cutting off parts. It's pointed on both sides, pointed on the end, and is designed for cutting. The skew is similar. It's a knife-like blade tapered on both sides to a sharp edge. Can be used for shaving or cutting coves or curves or grooves, etc. Now, there are many modifications of these. There are different sizes. An example of what you can do with them, I made the handles are homemade with copper pipe as a ferrule and the turned handles. The modifications are limited only by your imagination, and hopefully you'll take the project that you've contemplated and will, gee, I can do this, and go on and modify tools as necessary, make some new ones, but don't quit turning. Now, an example of what I've said, imagination is a great stimulus, and as we can see, these rings were not suitable to be made with using the standard tools, creating the thought and how do I get it done. So I came up with the design for the ring tool, the size of which depends on the size of the ring. The smaller the ring, the smaller the hook on the tool. The larger the ring, the larger the hook on the tool. Now the tool itself is designed so it's a three-sided scraper from both sides. So if it's too small, and the ring is too big, then you don't have heft. So you have to decide, what do I need to get this job done and maintain the integrity of the tool? Given that, then we end up with a ski ring. Now there's one tool I did not mention, don't think, but this is one very similar to the ring tool, but instead of being flat on the sides and acting as a scraper, it's been sharpened to act as a knife. And if I have extra wood on the inside of a ring, this is designed to go inside the ring and clean that out so that the rings are free and will be more amenable to finishing. Same thing happened with making all these other tools. The need is there, the desire, and the techniques of using standard tools, although it can be done, it obviously are easier and simpler ways to get to the end point. The whole exercise here then is to have hopefully stimulated you to realize that you're not locked into standard tools. You're not locked into standard projects. You find the project, you imagine what it takes to accomplish it, and if you don't have it, you fabricate it. And the way you become proficient is by turning, turning, turning. You're limited only by your imagination and your willingness to practice and create a lot of sawdust. I appreciate the opportunity to hopefully have stimulated you to accept the challenges that are on the lathe. Be careful, but don't let that dissuade you from being imaginative and creating a goal and then going after it. Thanks again.